life. So let's get into the second half of the program, of course, and get into the next subject here, which has a point of controversy in it. The other morning I woke up, started going down my social media feed, and all I saw in most of the Facebook posts from a lot of these metal media outlets was a headline that said something along the lines of Iced Earth's Jon Schaffer says former Iced Earth vocalist Stu Block is a poser. And this was in reference to an interview that he had just conducted with Metal Rose on Podcast of the Wicked, which was a fan question interview. And he was talking about how the former members of his band, or both bands, you know, if you want to talk about Demons and Wizards as well, how some of them handled the situation with him in the press better than others. And of course, Stu Block's name came up and Hansi Kursch's name came up. And he basically said that Stu Block putting up a post, which I'll put up right here in front of me, basically cheering on the incident, and then took the post down after, of course, people started reacting negatively to it, and then put up a post condemning it and indirectly condemning Jon when you actually read the headline of the post. And Jon said that was a poser move. And of course, everyone that watched this interview that was at some sort of metal media outlet, almost everybody put this post up saying Jon says Stu is a poser. And then subsequently, Stu Block on his Facebook page says he feels really gutted right now. And I'm going to assume that is in reference to that interview. Let me say a few things first before I show you the interview clip and comment on it. Number one, I think Stu Block is an incredible vocalist. I think his performance on the second version of the Annihilator album called Metal, I think it's called Metal 2, I think his performance on that was outstanding. Stu also sang on my favorite Iced Earth album, Dystopia. And I do like some of Into Eternity's material as well. I do like some albums they have put out. I think the guy's an incredible vocalist. And I don't know him personally. I've never interacted with the guy at all. I can only really judge him by his posts. And clearly the guy is a very, very talented singer. So I want to preface it by saying that. And after this interview clip, I'm also going to talk to you about the differences between how Stu Block handled everything in the press in regards to the incident that Jon was involved in compared to Hansi Kursch. Because I think it's important to explain the differences between how both of these guys handled that situation. Now, I do want to stress that I completely understand the cancel culture out there that was trying to cancel both Hansi and Stu. And I want to make sure that whatever I say is not what I think of them as a person, because I don't know Stu Block. And I've had pretty good contact with Hansi, and I'll explain some stuff after this video, but I want to put it out there that I think Stu is an outstanding musician. And Jon saying what he did, to be honest, when you watch this clip, it was not said with any type of malice or hate at all. In fact, Jon is actually quite proud of the work that him and Stu Block did together in Iced Earth. Check out this clip, and you'll see what I'm talking about right here.
I mean, my wish is that they would stop hating on Stu and on Hansi and on, I don't see it because I'm not on that, but you tell me, people tell me the things that have been said. The amount of bots that were, Elon Musk exposed that on Twitter. He said he thought like 93% of the accounts were bots. So there was a lot of stuff going out that were giving the people the illusion that there's this, they're sort of like the false reality makers. The guys were pressured. Some guys handled it better. some guys handled it very weak and kind of pathetic. And I think the biggest issue when it comes to Stu is that he made a post like cheering it on and then flipped, and that looks like a total poser move. You know what? It is a total poser move, but it's okay. Forgive him. We did some great work together. I had some of the best times in my life with Stu. I mean, when we toured, the Plagues album was different. You know, another one of those situations where I was wedged in. I was going through a divorce right then when it was all happening while we're in we rented this castle in Germany to rehearse and write. And then we recorded, I ended up working that album at like 4 different studios. And it's one of those moments, periods where I wasn't as engaged as I should have been and dealing with a lot of personal stress. That stuff affects you if you're a true artist. You know, it does. It's gonna have a result on the end product. You want every recording to be fun. But to get back to the point, you know, I have very precious memories with Stu. So please just forgive him. I forgive him. And he, you know, it's everybody is a flawed human being. And the thing is with Hansi and I are still close and we are always going to be. And the difference is that we talked before I turned myself in several times. And I knew what was coming because the pressure he was under and he hated it. You know, but it's a witch hunt. It was a witch hunt, and you know, it is what it is. I mean, it's a bummer because we write great stuff together, and we were on a serious trajectory. I mean, the last show I played in Europe, headlining Wacken on Saturday night in front of 100,000 people, and it was fantastic. And Slayer went on after us, and about 70% of the crowd left, and it was their last show in Germany. I mean, I'm just saying that's what happened. I was pretty shocked, but I mean,
wow.
You know, it was a great. The reunion tour of Demons and Wizards was hugely successful, and we had an amazing contract. Actually, a really amazing contract. But you know, Hansi had to do what he had to do. It is what it is. I treasure the memories that I've had with Hansi, and we're going to have more. You know, there's probably not musically. I doubt that's ever going to happen. I don't even know if I'm going to do music again. That's off the table right now. But just as brothers, nothing's going to change that. So please don't, you know, if you're going to, look, I'm all about free speech, man. I am. I'm just asking, you know, try to be a good human about this. You know, you have the freedom to say that. I don't censor anything that I don't have the ability to now, but even when I had the admin access to those pages, people can talk shit. There was only 1 or 2 times where there was some really vile, hateful stuff directed at Stu that I deleted those posts. But I've never done that because I don't really care. I mean, I believe in freedom. You're allowed to say what you want to say. But let's forget all of the division and stuff. You know, I'm not an angel. I have behaved poorly in the past. I've made mistakes. Everybody has. So let's just forget all that and let's focus on the good stuff because we did a lot of good shit together. I mean, we really did. But with both of those guys, and it was the cancel culture mob mentality. It's real. And if you're not really strong and really like of your convictions, it's going to have an effect, you know? So it's like, I get it. And I don't hold any ill will. And I would really love for the fans to just let it go and celebrate this catalog that's hanging up behind me was done with a lot of very talented, cool people. I mean, that's something to, you know, whatever drama, whatever shit's happened, let's let it go. I mean, you know, I really don't have any ill will. I know his true colors, you know, so that's a good thing. So it's like, you know, I'm not interested in hanging out like we did. And I have no interest in that, but I still, you know, he's a part of the band's history and we did some great stuff together. So and I wish him well.
Okay. So you heard Jon Schaffer talking about Hansi and Stu. Let's start off with the core of the headlines that people are talking about, like the Stu as a poser thing. So right here in front of me, here's the post Stu Block put up, which he later took down. And he's basically almost like, seems like he's cheering on the incident. And then, of course, after that, he puts up a post condemning it. Basically saying he would never have anything to do with anyone that was at the January 6th protest. And that is the point of contention that Jon has. Now, when you listen to that interview clip, Jon's not out there saying people should hate Stu Block. Jon is out there basically saying he forgives the guy. He is proud of the work and the memories he has with the guy. But very nicely put it out there that he won't ever have anything to do with them again. I think the way Jon stated this, he couldn't have put it any nicer than he did. I mean, realistically, he's actually out there trying to get people to not hate Stu Block. Here's my take on the whole incident. When Jon says that it's a poser move, let's call it what it is. It's a poser move. He put up a post. Stu Block puts a post up basically showing that he's cheering the incident on. Then when the pressure came, he took it down and condemned it. Because the cancel culture came for him and he caved to it. That is a poser move. And if I'm Jon Schaffer, then I'm looking at that like this guy just pretty much stabbed me in the back. You're going out there saying that you're sticking with me, and then you're basically saying, oh, you want nothing to do with me anymore, and you're basically condemning me now. That is a poser move. And if I were Jon, I understand completely where he's coming from on this. It's basically, I'm going to forgive you, but I'm not going to forget. And he put it in a very nice way. One of the things about this thing as well with Stu Block is I didn't realize how many Jon Schaffer supporters actually have been bashing Stu for the last 4 years. I mean, I started looking through Facebook groups, and there's a lot of hate for this guy from that group of people. Here's what I'm going to say. These people that are hating on him, that are big Jon Schaffer supporters, a lot of these people are going out and saying Jon made a mistake and that he should be forgiven for it. And that people should give him a second chance. Don't you think the same thing applies to Stu Block? Because on one hand, these people are saying you guys need to forgive Jon for making a mistake, but they don't want to forgive Stu Block for making a mistake. Because that's exactly what he did. He screwed up big time. Big time. You can't change it, folks. You know, there are people like, I'm not going to listen to Dystopia anymore or Plagues of Babylon. You know, I think that attitude is ridiculous. If you listen to that interview clip with Jon Schaffer talking about him working with Stu Block, he's extremely proud of the albums they made together. And he should be. He should be proud of them. Stu Block should be proud of them. Because his vocal performance on all of those records was outstanding. Let me give you guys a real life analogy here. Because I can relate to Jon Schaffer when he talks about, you know, I'm proud of the work I did with Stu. I forgive him. Don't hate the guy. But he basically said at the end, I'm really not going to be hanging out with this guy. Essentially stating that he'll have nothing to do with him. It is okay to be proud of work that you've done with somebody, even after you've had a falling out with them. I'll give you a real life story for myself. So for those of you that know me well, or know my background, you know I have done a lot of photography work. Now, it has nothing to do with the heavy metal scene, but I was doing photos and taking photos and writing articles for what I would consider a world-class publication. I took a lot of racing photos. In my opinion, I did some great work. But more importantly, the people involved in that publication and that magazine also did incredible work. And I was really just a cog in the wheel that made that thing work. The editor of the magazine did an outstanding job putting that thing together. The layout was great. The variety of topics that we visited in that magazine was outstanding, especially, compared to anything else out there in the car hobby. And it was a great run for me. But some things happened where I left. There were some things that were highly disappointing to me. There was a loss of respect for myself for some of the people involved with it, and I decided to leave. And I will never have anything to do with any of those people ever again. Do I forgive them? Sure. Do I have this built up hatred towards anybody there? Absolutely not. And even though I will never have anything to do with anybody there, what I will tell you is that I am extremely proud of not only the work that I did there with them, but I am extremely proud to have been part of something that was great. So even though I will never have anything to do with any of these people, it still doesn't mean I can't celebrate the work that was done, both by myself and the people involved in that magazine. And that is essentially what Jon is saying about Stu Block. Great times, great memories, did some great stuff together. And he forgives the guy, but he doesn't forget. And that is the underlying message. Let it go, move forward from it. Because for me, here's the thing. I'm going to check out the next Into Eternity album. And for all we know, Stu Block probably thinks back at that, he probably wishes he could take that mistake back. But what's said is said and what's done is done. I think it's time people move forward from it. Now, here's how I would have handled this situation. If it were me, if it were me being involved, because here's the thing. When you put up a post like that, and then you take it down and put up something completely the opposite of what you put up right before that because you caved to the pressure, a lot of people are going to think you're a phony. A lot of people are going to think that you're really not sincere in what you are saying. Because there's a lot of Jon Schaffer's supporters that have not forgotten that. And it still gets brought up. And I think these people just need to move past it at this point. If I were Stu Block, and if I were in that position, you know what I would have done? And I'm talking about when the whole thing started. I would have kept my mouth shut. I would have probably called Jon and said, I'm just going to kind of not say anything about it. I'm going to keep quiet about it. And I'm just going to kindly sort of sail off into the sunset until everything blows over and more information about the incident comes out. That's how I would have handled it. And you know who handled it that way? Hansi Kursch handled it that way. Now, in that video clip I showed you, he talked about the fact Hansi and him did talk before he went to jail. And they did talk about the situation, probably talked about how they were going to handle it. Because then Hansi, of course, they put up a post, he quits Demons and Wizards. But I'm willing to bet that when they had that conversation, they talked about the best way to handle that situation. And then Hansi pretty much kept quiet about it up until last year, where he said he thinks Jon Schaffer deserves a second chance. That is the way the situation should have been handled. That is how Stu Block should have handled that problem. Instead, he jumped the gun, made a post, caved to the pressure, and then completely contradicted himself. And that is where the hatred for him comes from. Folks, I'm still going to listen to Dystopia. I'm still going to check out the next Into Eternity album. The man is a human being. He made a mistake. Do I blame Jon for feeling the way that he does? Absolutely not. In fact, if I were in his position, I probably wouldn't have been as nice about it as Jon was. However, Jon was very straightforward. He wanted the fans to know where he stood with Stu Block, and he really could not have put that any better than the way that he did. Now, I really have nothing against Stu. You know, that incident would never stop me from covering anything that he does, from reviewing any of the albums he sings on, from talking about any of the albums that he sings on. Again, I think the guy's an incredible vocalist. But you can't take the incident away. It happened. And in my opinion, I think people just need to move on from it. Forgive, but don't forget. On one last note, one of the things I think that was really cool about that interview, and I didn't put it in the video, I didn't put that video clip in here, is the reissue of Sons of Liberty. I honestly think that is something that has been long overdue. And personally, if Jon is going to do something musically, just by the interviews that I've seen, I think musically this is probably going to be the thing that he does, possibly. You know, when that Sons of Liberty album came out, folks, a lot of people really had no idea about most of the subject matter on it. But now a lot of that is out in the open. There's a lot of alternative media covering a lot of that stuff. There are a lot of podcasts talking about these things. But back then, nobody really knew about any of this stuff. Nobody really paid attention to it. But in the last 9 or 10 years, people started to pay attention, and now you are hearing people talking about it openly. So I think a reissue for that album is going to be a lot more powerful now than it was back then. And personally, I would love a reissue of that on vinyl. They talked about some album artwork, some new album artwork. I think that would be really cool. And I would love for him to do a sequel to that, put another record out. And it's something he could do quite easily himself. You get a couple of musicians that you trust to play on it. You write the songs, you record them. You don't really need to tour with it unless you wanted to. But I think if I'm going to guess what this man will do next musically, it will have something to do with that. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty much going to say it will have something to do with that. So again, folks, I understand the anger towards Stu Block. I also think that the guy, I mean, folks, I think you guys should forgive the dude. For the people that dislike him over what happened, if you were out there clamoring for forgiveness for Jon, be consistent. You should forgive this guy and move on from the incident. Jon clearly has moved on from it. He clearly has no hatred for the guy. He's not telling you to not say anything. And it doesn't even mean, I mean, forgiving the guy doesn't mean you have to support the bands that he's singing in. It just means you just put the incident past you and you're done with it. Because some of these Facebook groups, Jon Schaffer supporter Facebook groups, are pretty brutal on Stu. But again, I get it. But the man made a mistake. I think we should let it go. Anyhow, I want to give props to Metal Rose from Podcast of the Wicked. That was a great interview. I listened to most of it. The fan questions were pretty cool. Some of them I kind of knew the answer to, like where he came up with the Iced Earth band name and stuff like that. But it was interesting hearing him talk about a lot of the subjects he talked about. And of course, his standing with some of the former members of the band. Now, I think Hansi Kursch, again, incredibly nice guy. And clearly he handled the situation in regards to what happened with Jon the right way. And, they're still friends even to this day. So anyhow, I'm going to move on to the next subject. I think we should forgive Stu Block, let it go, move forward from it, and move on. Hey, it's Tony here from the Metal Command Show. I want to thank you for watching this portion of the program. Since 1998, I have hosted the show, which started off as a radio program and is now into the podcast format. So I want to thank you for watching and or listening. And if you want to support the program, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any content. A lot of you have been supporting the show and really, really helping this show grow, and I cannot do it without all of you. So with that said, thanks for watching. Stay metal.